Good morning, everyone. I know everyone's getting their food, but I know one way to stop everyone from talking. Connie Brennan, where are you? Where's Connie? Connie, wave your hands. All right, I don't see Connie, but who can do this? Phil Dunning, why don't you lead us in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, let's get started today. Welcome to the NAIOP Southern Nevada September breakfast meeting, everyone. My name is Reed Gottesman, and I am the chapter president-elect, and today I am pinch hitting for my good friend and NAIOP president, Hayam Mizrahi. Good morning to everyone here in attendance at the Orleans, and also to all our friends joining by Zoom. As a reminder, the Zoom Q&A will be monitored, so please make sure to submit your questions. For all of those who are here in this room, please write down your questions on the notepads that can be found on your tables. The committee will circulate and collect them later on during the program. The Q&A will start at 9, and today's program will conclude at 9:15. At the beginning of this year, our president, Hayam Mizrahi, made a commitment to share some lesser-known facts about the chapter and its achievements. Today, I'm going to continue that, but first a quick recap of what we covered so far this year. This is actually going to take a second because we're getting kind of late in the year. In January, we shared that NAIOP Southern Nevada is a top 10 chapter nationally by member count. This really shows how this chapter punches well above its weight class. In February, we celebrated our Chapter Merit Awards and how this chapter has been winning awards since 1993. In March, we talked studies that NAIOP has been involved with over the years. These studies sound just a little bit boring, but they're critical to maintaining the health of our industry. In April, we took the trip down memory lane, hearing about how the Community Service Committee came to be. May, we talked about a program that is near and dear to many of us, our Developing Leaders Institute program. And by the way, the new class, I would imagine a lot of them are here, so big congratulations. Come on. In June, we saw some pretty cool hotel implosions on the video while we discussed the history of our programs dating all the way back to 1986. In July, we talked about the history of our education program since 2001. Last month, we focused on a critical component of our organization, government affairs. We specifically discussed the committee's efforts and successes. Today, let's talk communications. All right. Communications Committee is the most glamorous behind-the-scenes committee. And Cassie Catania Sue, I think you're out there somewhere in Zoom land. Couldn't make it in person today. And isn't it the most glamorous committee? This committee works to get the word out about all the big events and public recognition to the whole membership. In fact, communications is responsible for making a big deal about all the other committees. They're the group that makes all the other groups feel good. All right, timeline time. And I think we have some cool stuff on the screen. In the early years, Communications produced a quarterly printed newsletter and received Chapter Merit Awards for it in 1997, 2005, and 2007. In 2001, they developed the first website. It makes me think that there was some AOL dial-up kind of sounds that went along with that. In 2006, produced a commemorative 20th anniversary publication. In 2009, we entered the social media fray. 2010 began the practice of emailing newsletters. In 2020, the members-only Facebook group was created with the goal of creating connectivity during COVID. And on a side note, I think this organization really crushed it during COVID and grew stronger in so many ways. In a nutshell, for about the past 25 years, the Communications Committee has grown and increased our social media presence year over year. And I guess we'll see what they have in store next. Currently, B&P Relations is engaged to help with promotion of the chapter and its events. And as a result, 8 news stories published about our August breakfast meeting last month alone. So Denise Teller, I see here. Why don't you stand up and take a little, come on. I would think a communications person would stand up, but all right. All right, President's Circle sponsors. Let's take a moment to honor them. They're a critical component to the success of our chapter, a really critical component. Don't kid yourselves. Platinum sponsor. Special thanks to Cox Business, our platinum sponsor. They've supported us for 18 years. I'll list off our gold sponsors, Kimley Horn & Associates, the 2022 Spotlight Engineering Firm of the Year. Majestic Realty Company, whose leader Rod Martin is a Spotlight Lifetime Achievement Award recipient. Nevada General Construction, Panettone Development Company, 2022 Development Firm of the Year. Prologis, and I saw a pretty good contingency from Prologis today. Southern Nevada Water Authority. These guys have been doing some really difficult and necessary work in our community and should be commended. And the Howard Hughes Corporation. And now take a look at the screen and take a look at our silver, bronze, and our copper sponsors, please. All right, watch for our 2023 President's Circle sponsorship package in October. And it's budget season for many of you, and it's time to seriously think about sponsoring in 2023. And if you're thinking about this, please stop by at the registration desk for more details or speak with Katrina or Jonna anytime. All right, let's talk briefly about CRE Converge. It's NAIOP's largest conference. This year's keynote speakers are Marcy Rossell, expert economic forecaster, and Mike Steep, executive director of the Stanford Engineering Center for Disruptive Technology and Digital Cities. It's in October. It's in Chicago, October 10th through 12th, and register by October 7th. And who doesn't want to go to Chicago? I think they might give out old-style beers. So, committee announcements. Where's our committee members? NAIOP runs because of great committees made up of volunteer members, and here they come. And let's take a moment to hear updates, and one who's always really good at anything on a microphone. Here you go.
Thank you, Reed. Jennifer Levine with Realcomm Advisors. I'm the board liaison to the bus tour committee. We are coming up really quickly right now on Thursday, November 10th, here at the Orleans. We're doing it virtually again, sort of virtually again, where we're in person going from room to room. We had a record number of properties submitted this year, so unfortunately it'd be impossible to drive them anyway. You don't want to be on a bus for 8 hours. But you want to be here. It's a storybook-themed event this year. We've got all kinds of people signed up for it. There's a few sponsorships left, and the biggest thing right now is early bird registration, so you want to get signed up now because it's going to be an amazing event. There's been so much happening in office, industrial, and retail, and this is going to be where you find out all the details about the intel on those deals.
Jen's totally right. Go to this event.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Deshawn Brunswick with SVN The Equity Group, and I am here on behalf of the Community Service Committee. And the committee is now preparing for their upcoming food drive benefiting Helping Hands of Vegas Valley. And for those who do not know, Helping Hands is a local nonprofit whose mission is to improve the lives of senior citizens. So please be on the lookout for an email containing the donation items. And, oops, sorry, I apologize. And the donations will be accepted through the month of October. So also, please bring any donation items to next month's breakfast meeting, and also contact a committee member, and we can arrange for a pickup of those items. I know Helping Hands is doing great for the community, so I hope that you will support, and thank you for your continued support.
Jennifer Turchin with Coda Group. I'm the chair of the Education Committee. We just want to let you know about our last education program of the year. It's Due Diligence. Do you know what's under the ground? So save the date for November 18th at Northern Trust Bank, and an email will be coming out with registration information.
Good morning. I'm Guy Gugino with Union Bank. I'm here for the Golf Committee. Save the date, May 4th next year, and believe it or not, our Our theme is May the 4th be with you. We'll be reaching out next month for sponsorship opportunities, and there will also be team opportunities. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Gaetana Cafasa with Burke Construction Group for NAIOP Spotlight Awards. So save the date for the 26th annual event. It will be on March 25th at Red Rock Resort. Call for entries for projects and industry submissions have been out. You have until October 24th, and sponsorship should be coming out by the end of the month. Thanks.
Morning, everybody. I am Micah with Nevada General Construction, here with the membership committee. Everyone's probably heard me at this point, but it is 1 week away for the social event of the year at Diversion Amusements. 70s themed, disco fever, dress up. Last year we had a lot of good costumes. I know some folks in this room really went all out, and I'm expecting the same this year. The biggest piece, I think a lot of people in here are already registered. A big goal for us is to get non-members to come out and see what our organization is about, see what we can offer, have a great time. It starts our membership drive for next year. So it's not just about registering our folks, but be communicative with everybody else in your network. Make sure we try to get a really good turnout for this event. Again, that's next week, a week from today, 5 to 7 Diversion Amusements, not too far from where we are right now. Second is the holiday luncheon. It is December 9th. December 9th at the Four Seasons Hotel. Save the date. More info will be coming out on that shortly. Thank you.
Awesome. Our committee chairs work so hard, so thank you guys. And I would be remiss if I did not mention Dan Tutland, our programs chair. His committee's just been knocking it out of the park, so I think we put on the best programs in the business, so let's look forward to another great one today. Each month we like to recognize our new members. If you're a new member, please stand up and welcome to NAIOP. And if you see a member with a red new member ribbon on their name tags, say hello, fist bump them, shake their hand, whatever. So we have over 650 members and ranking in the top 10. We may have mentioned that already. If you're not a NAIOP member and you're watching today, think about it. It's really easy, and you'll probably, if you do join, you'll wonder why you didn't do it sooner. I'm going to list off our breakfast sponsors so far this year: Affordable Concepts, Cox Business, Dermody Properties, Helix Electric, Heller Companies, NV Energy, Schnitzer Properties, Southern Nevada Water Authority, and SR Construction. And now today's sponsor. Special thank you to this morning's sponsor is Carpenter Sellers Delgado Architects. They've been a valuable supporter of this chapter since 2001. Carpenter Sellers Delgado Architects is an award-winning firm celebrating 35 years in Southern Nevada. CSD's architectural designs and diverse state, regional, and national project portfolio have earned the respect of their peers with 174 designs and firm awards, and having been named the 2021 NAIOP Southern Nevada Architecture Firm of the Year and 3 times prior, as well as being the 2019 AIA Western Mountain Region Architecture Firm of the Year and named by the Zwei Group as the best firm to work for in 2020. Is Michael Delgado here? All right, step on up.
Good morning. It was really nice to connect with so many friends this morning, and it's our pleasure to sponsor today. Just as we think about the projects we're most proud of, so many of them involve NAIOP members. So thank you for all your collaboration, and to all the committees, thank you for the work that you do to make our chapter better and our community better. So thank you, and it's a pleasure to be here today.
Okay, so let's get the program started. Reminder, there's paper on the tables for the Q&A. Our committee members will pick them up towards the end of the program. Zoom Q&A will be monitored, so we look forward to your questions. And Q&A will start at 9 o'clock, and today's program concludes at 9:15. So let's get this program started. I'm going to introduce our moderator for today, Steve Neiger of Colliers International. And before I read his actual bio, I just really want to publicly say how valuable Steve's commitment and leadership in government affairs has been to this organization. Everyone in this industry, whether they know it or not, truly owes a debt of gratitude to Steve. So now his actual bio. Steve's a native Las Vegan. That always happens when Steve's name is mentioned. All right. He brings over 15 years of retail, commercial, real estate industry experience. He's an '05 graduate of UNLV, and he entered the industry as a property manager. After the Great Recession, he became a broker, and he's been doing that ever since. He's also an active real estate investor and is proud to be a principal in one of downtown Las Vegas's most famous and historical properties, the Old Gamblers General Store Complex. He currently serves on the NAIOP Board of Directors and, as mentioned, Government Affairs Committee Chair. He's a DLI graduate, CCIM designee, and a member of ICSC. Plenty of acronyms for Steve. He's also a commissioner for the City of Las Vegas Parks and Recreation Department. And Steve provided a fun fact. In junior high school in the mid-'90s, Steve lived in the area now known as the Arts District on a property that is now home of the new, much nicer Share Downtown, a 4-story apartment project built by our guest speaker, Sam Cherry. And with that, I hand this over to Steve.
I heard this was being recorded, so I'm just going to put Chaim's name up here instead of mine. Thanks for being here. Thank you, Carpenter, Sellers, Gatto, for sponsoring the event. I'm going to bring our distinguished guests up, and we'll get this thing started. First, Sam Cherry. Sam Cherry has developed over $200 million in projects in downtown Las Vegas. He built the first residential high-rise in the city of Las Vegas, Soho Lofts. He recently finished the multifamily housing project Share Downtown in the Arts District and is building another one in the Fremont East area. He started working on downtown projects 2 decades ago and lives downtown even still today. In his free time, he serves as a planning commissioner for the city of Las Vegas, and he loves long walks on Fremont Street. Please welcome Sam Cherry. Our second panelist, John Tippins. John Tippins is the founder and CEO of Northcap Commercial. He's a real estate developer and an owner of multifamily, retail, and office projects. He was a partner in the development of the Metropolitan Police Headquarters and recently closed in partnership 3 land deals from the city of Las Vegas for development. In his career, John has been involved in over 100 transactions in downtown Las Vegas. He is a UNLV graduate, and in 2007 graduated the City of Las Vegas Leadership Las Vegas. Yep. In his free time, he's a board member for the Mayor's Fund and is on the advisory board for UNLV. John also loves long walks on Fremont Street. Thank you guys for being here.
Thank you.
So, when Dan called me to do a program about downtown, I said, damn it, we just did a program about downtown last year. And he said, yeah, I know. And I said, I know. And he said, does that mean you can't talk about new and interesting stuff for an hour about downtown that has nothing to do with what we talked about last year? I said, no, I can do that. And he said, yeah, I know. Okay, so. And I said, I see your point. So last year we talked about exciting stuff on Fremont Street. We talked about Tony Hsieh. We talked about the tourist component. This time we're not going to talk about that at all. The title of the program is All Grown Up? Is that what we did? All Grown Up downtown. So obviously the intent of the program was to have three principals. I really should not be called a principal compared to these guys. These guys are true founders of the new downtown, so I'm very happy they're here, and I think that we're all going to have a great time listening to them about what's going on. So I kind of dubbed the program Pillows, PCs, and Plates. That's kind of the intent here. Where you sleep, where you work, and where you eat. That's everything we're going over here. I'm going to start by summarizing a few things that are new and have happened in the last 12 months. Not what's coming, but what has already happened. At the front, when you guys leave, there's a couple of documents. There's one, it's an aerial of Symphony Park, and there's also 25 pages of projects that are coming online and have come online that the City of Las Vegas Economic and Urban Development Department put together. When you flip through those pages, I mean, it's 25 pages and there's multiple projects per page. So you can take that. It's pretty incredible to actually see it on paper. Few things. International Intervention Center number 2 has officially opened at 801 South Main. The Huntridge Theater redevelopment is happening, and it's anchored by Soho Playhouse. I'm not sure if anybody's heard of Soho Playhouse, but look them up. It's pretty exciting. Atomic Range. Anybody heard of Atomic Range coming to the Strat? In the hands? It's 0. Few. 5, 10. Thank you. They are basically Top Golf, but as those founders would tell you, much newer technology. So they're stepping up the game in range golf, and they're going right immediately north of the Strat. Vic Symphony Park, full-service restaurant and tavern with live music, venue by the folks that own Stoney's Rockin' Country. That'll open this fall. The Kirk Kerkorian School of Medicine, everybody knows about that. That's obviously huge news for everybody. That's opening, having their grand opening on October 5th. The completion of the Grand Civic Center across from City Hall is expected to be Q3 of '24. And Auric and Parkhaven, brand new apartments in Symphony Park, are nearly full at this point, and there's a lot more apartments coming. So having said that, I'd like to stop talking and ask John and Sam about their origin stories of downtown for a few, and what you guys are working on now and what you have worked on. So by all means, please.
Yeah, Sam and I actually met, I started my career with Jim Zeter, and we met while I was in college at our office, and Sam was like, I'm going to build a high-rise downtown, and I'm like, well, I got these listings that Mr. Bigelow has, and nothing worked out on our stuff, but Sam, that's how we met back in 2001-ish, I think, right?
Yeah.
And I had all the Bigelow listings downtown, from Studio Plaza to his what he started his career with, which is budget suites, and the market started to go up, and everyone was talking high-rise and mid-rise, and we stayed down there since 2001, and still down there today. So.
And we started in downtown. Actually, Grant Garcia, who's here, a partner of mine, and Jason Liddell and Ryan Stebor, we all went to high school together. Well, Grant and I were trying to flip homes and make money and make a living and rehab things, and looked at trying to do something bigger and better. And Oscar Goodman at the time was really talking about downtown and just really trying to drum up some business. So we had looked down there, and we could see that there's really a future down here. Downtown was on a grid system with a lot of potential growth and a big story that could be told for many years to come. And so when we started our project, we'd look at other projects like competition, and the closest one at the time was Turnberry, and we'd say, okay, well, what's the difference in that area to where we're at? And when you'd walk outside of Turnberry, it's never going to change. It's always going to be what it is in front there. And so it was easy for us to see that we needed to be in downtown, and we'd tell people, if you're going to live in Turnberry, you're going to live a miserable life, you're going to cry every day, and you should sell your unit and move downtown. That's what we still tell people that today. It's the same story about downtown today. There's still future growth, there's still excitement in downtown. And it's the same thing for 20 years now. So.
Thank you, sir. I sold the Sterling Club for a fraction of what it was cost to build, and I told him the same thing when I was selling it too. I'm just kidding. I enjoy Turnberry, and Sterling Club's an amazing property. So let's start with, let's dig into multifamily a little bit. I mean, Soho Lofts, there's some towers there, there's Turnberry, there's some towers, Panorama along the tourist corridor. Nobody really understands, everybody's been talking about it for years, and that downtown is needed housing. They need affordable housing, they need apartments, they need high-rises, and these guys are actually doing it. They've been doing it for a long time. They've been through the cycles, and so I guess I want to ask, for the units that you guys are working on currently or are already finished, how has demand been? I know that the general talking point is things are great and we're filling up units, but can we get a little bit more detail, a little bit more color on, what you're seeing for rents and what kind of units you have and how that's relative or how it compares to the rest of town?
Sure. Excuse me. So we'll go back to, when the condo crash happened and we took over what was Streamline Towers at the time and Jewel, and we converted Streamline Towers into the Ogden, and the partners in that deal were Starwood Capital, TPG, and the FDIC. And Las Vegas was kind of the last market in the country. I think Las Vegas and Phoenix were the last markets in the country to rebound from the condo crash. And we rented those units out at Ogden, and it was like 40 units in the first month, 50 units, and it was this waiting list of people that wanted to live in the Ogden. And at the time, the Ogden, it's located at Ogden and Las Vegas Boulevard, which is right next to Fremont East. At the beginning, there was no downtown project. There was a few bars, and it was the only place you could really walk to, a bar, a restaurant, a coffee shop, and it was completely different than the Fremont Street experience. And so probably 3 months in, 4 months in, Tony Shea and Zappos and those guys came and leased about 70 units from us, and he really helped the whole Fremont East take off, probably by like 15 years. And I think Tony really helped all of downtown take off because it created opportunities in the Arts District, by Jewel. So fast forward, we converted Ogden back to condos and sold it out. And so we displaced probably 275 to 300 people that were renting at the Ogden. Many of them moved over to Jewel, but then now have started leasing up at Auric. They went to F9, which the Elysian guys bought recently, called Eli, I think. And then some people went to Sam's building that he opened in the Arts District. And so it's really build it and they will come. And as far as we can see, at Auric and at Park Haven, we're both right at 90% in probably 11 months now, I think, 12 months.
90% brand new apartments, and they're not cheap.
Right. So I know at ARC we're getting around $2,400 a month for a 2-bedroom. We're also getting a $175 amenity fee. So I think if you build them, they'll come. We have 3 other projects with Southern Land right now that will break ground later in the year. 2 in the Symphony Park, and then 1 in the Arts District, a total of about 1,200 units. So.
Yeah, and I can say for the stuff that we're doing, we started in the multifamily with Share Downtown in the Arts District. I remember seeing a number years before we started that said there's a pent-up demand of like 6,000 units that immediately could be filled. That came across, and I looked at Grant and said, we got to build some units down here. And we love the Arts District. Our first building was in the Arts District, Soho Loft in the northeast corner. So we brought a concept, Share Downtown, which is a 4-story building, small units, 480 square feet. You have to go outside to change your mind. However, when you do go outside, there's great amenities. I mean, they're beautiful. You have downtown. You have Esther's Kitchen right next door, the sushi place, the wine bar, and then everything we do on property. And we're getting a great rental amount. We're trying to be, so we look at it for the people living there at the overall price of what they're paying for rent. And we're in that $1,200 to $1,300 a month. We purposely didn't have 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms. We didn't want to have units that were 2,000, 3,000. And there's a market for it, but it's just not the market we wanted to be in. So we were very focused on what we're doing. We started the project, and then COVID hit. And we were essential, so we were able to keep going and keep building somehow. And so we had to adjust our what we thought our lease up would be. And in less than 6 months, we filled up the building. We were able to get our permanent financing, and the building is full. There's a wait list to get in. And we started another project on 11th and Stewart, same concept, share downtown. Instead of 4 stories, it's 5 stories. We're just topping off next week on the building. Obviously, big concerns with interest rates going up and just different factors in the market, but we're confident we're going to lease them up, and we have a runway of more that we're going to bring online.
So, next 5, 10, 15 years, I mean, at some point, does the demand you're seeing, I mean, obviously, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, but with the lands bill being dead, we're going to have to start talking about infill and density more than ever before. So that's sort of a variable nobody can really quantify yet, but do you guys see this demand indefinitely going over the next 5, 10, 15 years?
Well, I can jump in quickly and say that, I mean, 5 years happens like that. You know, that's so, you know, and then downtown being largely in an opportunity zone, and these are 10-year holds, there's a lot of capital coming in that's structured with the opportunity zones. Our second project was structured as an opportunity zone, so that's a 10-year hold for us. And I think, you know, just even at the last Planning Commission on Tuesday, there was over 700 units approved between the medical district, the arts district, some district I've never even heard of that's in downtown. So there's a lot of excitement happening down there. So.
Yeah. It's been described to me like Nashville, and it's not stopping. And if you look at what happened in the last 10 years and think about the next 10 years, I mean, I think we're going to get to these high-rise questions, but you know, the rents are getting to a high-rise market, and there's some crazy projects that you see at Planning Commission where there's like 300 units on an 11-story parking garage that you're just like, this is not going to happen. But Phase 3 at Symphony Park with Southern Land is a high-rise project that's starting in the end of the year. And as far as it slowing down, I just don't see it. There was more businesses in the Arts District that opened since COVID than downtown Summerlin, as far as like bars and restaurants and things like that. If you like barbecue, there's a barbecue row, there's a brewery row. The first brewery is kind of an interesting story. When the Golden Knights, what was the guy that started the beer?
Ryan Reeves?
Reeves.
Yeah.
So Abel Baker opened up, and they said and they had Ryan Reeves beer, and Ryan Reeves never scores, but they said if he scores, then they're going to give away his free beer all night. And he scored the first night that they offered this. And so all of a sudden, Abel Baker was like the place to watch hockey games for the Golden Knights. So if you haven't been to the Arts District and just seen like the amount of growth, it's unreal. It's walkable, it's safe. You can walk from Sam's building to Esther's, like you said, but there's like cool gyms down there that aren't 24-hour fitness, and Las Vegas athletic clubs, and so.
Somehow I miss Ryan Reeves even more now.
Yes.
You mentioned COVID, and COVID changed a lot of stuff, including remote work. It made it a lot more accessible. It made it a lot more possible. And I guess I want to ask you guys the tenant profile. Who is, I mean, we hear plenty about Californians coming here, but who are your tenants? Give us a typical profile. Are they full-time? Are they investors? Are they vacationers? Who are they?
Well, I can speak to Share Downtown. It's across the board. We have artists, we have people that are retired, we have teachers, we have chefs. I mean, there's not, it's a wide range. They come together with one understanding of living in an urban environment and what it has to offer to them and the amenities of it. But we have a wide range in Share Downtown.
Ours is a complete mixed bag. So we converted about 200 micro apartments, former weekly monthlies, into what's called Revive. And so those are about 300 square feet, and those are a lot of artists, there are a lot of bartenders, a lot of the service industry staff kind of walking to the arts district. And then at ARIC, the tenant profile is all over the board. A lot of people sold their home in the 2020, 2021, and just pulled all the equity out, and they're paying to live in a nice place. Our tenant profile in some of our other buildings went from about 36% of our renters were from California, and then when COVID happened towards the end of 2020, we saw about 45% of our renters from California. We were all worried collecting rents in 2020, like if we were going to collect rents, and we didn't get hit really bad. I don't know how you guys did, but
Yeah, weathered right through it.
yeah.
Our project came online, we were doing lease up post-COVID. And so the process, the apartments that were online before us, I think had, tougher waters to navigate with the rental component of it, so.
What's interesting, and I don't want to get too far off track, but we've been hearing these stories about downtown for quite some time, and you hear this tenant mix, and it's literally the exact same story I heard when Lotus got built in Chinatown. When the developer was bringing Lotus online and we were doing the retail, we had no idea who was going to move in. I was waiting to hear from them because I was excited to hear who was moving to Chinatown. And it was the exact same story. By the time they started getting 60, 70, 80% occupied, it was from an age range, it was all the way across the board, from 20 to 70, from demographics, whether it was ethnicity or income, all across the board, people that were living there full time, some vacationers. And it really just had to do with being in proximity to a great quality of life that they didn't have to drive to. And I don't know if that's what they're really coming to your guys' units for, but they had to have looked at other apartments in other parts of town. They had at some of those kinds of rents. You're looking at some parts of town, and you're looking at Summerlin, you're looking at Henderson. Why did they ultimately choose downtown? Is it that, look, I can walk to a beer? What do you guys think it is? Why do they choose downtown?
Yeah, I think it's the overall excitement of downtown. I think it is the walkability. We can only park half the building on site. And just because they're small sites downtown, there's not enough room. So we had to design a project understanding that we need to market to people that understand downtown, that'll walk in downtown, that'll take the ride share, which is the RTC electric bikes we had a station put right in front of the building. And that mix, as far as people that don't have cars, that have cars, worked out very well for us, exactly what we thought it would be. We charge for parking. We get $150 a month per stall. We started out at $75 and just it wouldn't stop, and so now we're at $150, and that's where we're going to stop. And I think it's we also don't have the big grand clubhouse with the pool and the jacuzzi. We have a small gym, we have a small community area, we have a place where you can go and do your co-working stuff and a great Wi-Fi. So we know we have to be more engaged in our building, which we are. So every month we do a First Friday event for the residents. Every third Thursday we take the residents out in the neighborhood to go to different restaurants, introduce them to the neighborhood, and we pay for everything. We just take them out there, and we get about a third of the building participates. And that just spreads. They tell their friends. We tell them, bring a friend downtown. And, to the point where I feel like we just don't need to do any more marketing for the building. The building is internally marketing itself with the amenities of downtown.
What percentage of your residents do you think own cars? That's a
I can tell you and share. So with Soho Lofts, being a condo product, we were adamant at having a minimum 1-to-1 on the parking, but for
one stall per one unit?
One stall per one unit.
Okay.
And that's worked out great. For share, we thought we'd have about 60% of the units, 70% of the units have cars, and it's worked out almost. I think it's 65% have cars. The rest have other means to get around downtown. Some people, there's I can think of 5 or 6 people that work either from their unit doing this vlogging thing and stuff I don't understand, and or they, do their internet calls and they do it well.
I wanted to use the time wisely, but one more thing as we talk about, what you guys have built. Economic development incentives is a very, very broad term, and there's federal level, there's local level, there's state level, I think. And our state has several departments that try and do a pretty good job. The cities have, departments that do a good job. What have you guys across the board used in the last 5-10 years in terms of incentives, and how useful has that been?
I think the city of Las Vegas is the best place to do business in the country, and it is a red carpet experience from, the RDA to having access to the city council and the mayor. I don't know another city in the country that you would have that kind of access to of a city of this size. Developing and building and rehabbing in downtown Las Vegas coincidentally fell into the opportunity zones. So all of the Southern Land deals that we put together, the deal at the Meadows Mall that Tim Dieters at True Development is now building, those were all opportunity zone deals, taking advantage of that. It was considered to be one of the best opportunity zones in the country because everything was already being built. The city also allows for 75 feet wood frame construction, which is part of the International Builders Code, whereas the county, Boulder City, Henderson, and North Las Vegas didn't adopt that. So, it's just an incentive that the city has that the others don't. You can build it in other places, but you got to change the construction type. And so we're big cheerleaders of the city. And I think there's not a wait time. They established form-based code, which Sam just went through as the test child, I guess. And so form-based code essentially doesn't require you to go to the neighborhood meetings, and so long as you follow the guidelines, you're a little bit more up to speed on that. But
Yeah, Ryan Smith talked about form-based code, but he just called you the test child, so please elaborate.
Yeah, and before I get to that, like as far as incentives for us, we haven't taken advantage of state stuff just because once prevailing wage kicks in, it really just skews our numbers so much that we can't do the project, and unless we're being subsidized heavily by something else, then it just doesn't work for us. So the incentives we've done is opportunity zone, like John said. We've done some federal tax credits for multifamily housing based on energy efficiency. We did the solar tax credit. We put solar on our building. So it's been minimal for what we've done, and the projects have still worked well. Our project on 11th and Stewart was one of the first, if not the first, of form-based code to go through the process. And like John mentioned, it's a process where the city, for years leading up to it, went out to the community, tried to explain this new process of code. Very confusing process initially, and once you understand it, it makes a lot of sense. And and it's basically making sure that developments in the area stay consistent with the area. And if you want to do something different, there is a process to do something bigger or grander, whatever is in your vision. And so, like John said, there's a mechanism that allows you to apply, and if you meet all the guidelines, then you don't necessarily need to go to public hearing. So our project met all the public guidelines, but they still took us to public hearing, and we passed through public hearing, and they made a lot of changes based off our project to the code, and that was just in this Fremont East area. They went to the medical district, I believe, next, and they're looking at the arts district. So at some point, all of downtown will be form-based code. One nice thing that I saw at Planning Commission, there's a mechanism where if you want to get more density, if you want to get more height on a project, then you need to come forward with an affordable unit component. And so the project in the medical district that was just approved through planning, 7-story building where it was it's natural to do 5 stories. You can ask for 7 if you do the affordable component, which they did. So it's nice to see some affordable product getting put into the buildings and some type of trade-off with it too.
Affordability is a word that everyone's probably going to hear a lot more of here in the next few years. And I wanted to take a moment and sort of do a brief little background on the word density. How many in this room really understand what the word density means? A few. So we use it a lot, especially in the mixed use coming, and when you start talking about infill and you run out of land, essentially you create more density by adding more people, more bodies per square mile. And one way to do this is building high rises and skyscrapers and mid rises, just like you see in urban cores and downtowns across America. Typically, urban cores in American cities start a little differently than downtown Las Vegas. They often started with jobs and rooftops and government, whereas downtown Las Vegas started with entertainment and hospitality. Fremont Street was where dam workers went to let loose and have a good time. As Vegas grew up, obviously, and commuting via mass-produced affordable vehicles became the standard across America, the home builders here, just like everywhere else, started to sprawl and build outward and build or buy large tracts of cheap land and build single-family residences decade after decade after decade. That's what happened here. Just like the rest of the country, the Vegas lifestyle became more suburban and casinos started building south of Sahara. Slowly, people started forgetting about downtown, and they forgot about it for several decades. It was pretty forgotten when I lived there as a kid. But thanks to a lot of work by a lot of people in the last 20 years, especially these guys, people aren't forgetting about downtown Las Vegas anymore, and there's not really large tracts of cheap lands to buy anymore either. And now that the lands bill is apparently stalled indefinitely, I don't know if anyone had heard that, but the lands bill is now stalled indefinitely, and we were really hoping on that because there's a lot of BLM lands that we needed to build more stuff, and that's kind of what NAIOP cares about. Infill and density those are words that are going to be heard a lot more, and it's really going to come down to downtown. Downtown is high-density living in the beginning, and it's in the perfect position to be the focal point of all of that future development for these reasons. Land plays a major role in population density. It costs a lot more to build the projects that these guys have built. It costs a lot more to go vertical than it does to build some houses on cheap dirt. So the general rule is land needs to be scarce and expensive for vertical to make sense. And now that cheap dirt is not really a thing anymore, it's going to make more sense to go vertical for our residential needs. Walkability is becoming a more familiar term as well, and obviously more density means more walkability and a higher quality of life. These guys have understood that for decades. People don't want to drive home from work and close the garage door before their neighbor gets to say hello anymore. So I guess I wanted to say, you guys mentioned it earlier, is downtown walkable? When you look at other downtowns and how vertical they've gone in their skyscrapers, is that downtown's future at some point, or is it going to be its own thing?
I think downtown has been walkable for the last 20 years. I mean, I walked to lunch the other day. I tried to go to the Greek restaurant right off of First Street, and it was packed. I couldn't get in, so I walked to the Mexican restaurant next door, Letty's, I think it's called, and had a great meal, and I walked back to the office. So I for many years lived in Soho in the high-rise, and then my wife and I had a child, and she wanted to move to a home, so we moved 1.5 miles down the road. I could have lived there for the rest of my life, but she wanted a home, so and I've walked from my house, 1.5 miles away to the core of downtown, which is a nice stroll right by the medical district and into the core. And and if I'm going downtown to the Arts District, I'll park at Cher and I'll walk over to Esther's. I'll walk over when I lived at Soho. I'd walk to my dry cleaning. I'd walk for my haircut. And then obviously, There's the heat that comes in the summer, there's the cold that comes in the winter, so you figure out how to navigate through that, and the places where you grab the shade, and the places that you don't go, and the times that you don't go. You have to be mindful of all that in downtown. But yeah, I'd say it's very walkable.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think I was telling Dan when we were talking, Dan Tutland, before we were talking about this, that, you know, you see guys like Barry Becker, who I was with last week, and we were talking about downtown, and, you know, he's going to Esther's Kitchen all the time. We consider, I don't know if you agree with this, but hopefully you do. I consider downtown, you know, the medical district, the housing neighborhoods around there, like Scotch 80s, Rancho Circle, Rancho Bel Air, Rancho Nevada, McNeil. These are fun neighborhoods. To me, these are like real neighborhoods, like in real cities, and you don't close your garage when you get home, and you actually wave to your neighbors, and what the city's doing to connect the walkability side of it. So Knutson is widening the sidewalks, doing tree-lined streets from Sahara to 95 along Rancho, and then what he mentioned, the walk from Alta. So you're in what, Rancho Nevada?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Rancho Nevada down Alta into the core is all going to be widened sidewalks, tree-lined streets, and then Olivia Diaz is taking Oki, I think it is, and connecting Oki into the south end of the Arts District. And so it's a kind of a big, like, 1.5 mile by 1.5 mile of walkability, and then everybody's going to want to be in that core of development, right?
Yeah.
I mean, in our neighborhoods, you get half acres, you know, quarter acres is like a minimum, and the trees are like from the 60s, and so we consider that all part of downtown and the walkability of it. So.
It looks like we got about 10, 15 minutes left, and then we're going to go to questions. Dan's in the back. If you guys had Q&A, there's papers and pens in front of you. Dan will be walking around gathering questions if you have them. We talked a lot about that. I want to get to, what do they call it? PCs and plates. I want to get to jobs for a minute. You brought up a lot of the stuff they're doing, and jobs are crucial, and obviously we talked about remote working and how that's sort of changing the profile of, being close to work. But if you think about downtown, you think about obviously the hospitality, the restaurants, Fremont Street. You think about the municipalities, you've got the county headquarters, you've got City Hall. You think about the legal profession, all the courthouses. You've got the tech industry, which the city of Las Vegas has been working their butts off to build for years now. And you've got the medical district, which I have two questions. Do you guys, the medical district, we call it downtown. Does that activity, that economic activity, that employment activity, that human activity spill over the freeway? And if I missed one of these sectors, let me know, but what are you guys most excited about right now for the next 10 years of job growth?
I can quickly say I know it does spill over. We have tenants that work in the medical district that live and share downtown, so that's happening right now. And as far as job growth, I mean, downtown has always had jobs. It's a commuter downtown historically. There's been 40,000 people working down there. It's a 24-hour town. So between all those things you just named, between the casinos and the legal system and all the different infrastructure that's been there for a long time, it's just at 5 o'clock everyone left. And when we were living at SO, it was a ghost town down there. I'd walk around and it'd just be me walking around, looking, nothing going on. Everyone left their office and went back to their homes. That was 16, 17 years ago. It's a completely different downtown now. I walk around, I see people with dogs, I see people joggers, really? I remember bringing a banker down there, and they thought I queued up the jogger to go down there. But, I mean, it's just, it's a different place. And so my point is, there's been jobs for a long time, and we're expanding off that base that's been there, specifically the medical district. That's an easy one to point to. So yeah, there's a lot of growth.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I thought they were running from like a guy chasing them. It is funny when you bring someone downtown, that grew up here and hasn't been downtown in like the last 5 years, 10 years, and they just still have this perception of don't go past Fremont and Las Vegas Boulevard. It's unsafe. Jumping a little bit backwards, but the downtown project folks would walk from like 13th all the way up Fremont to the Zappos headquarters. So no security guards. I mean, it was no metro. But the medical district, jumping to that, it's a real thing. The UMC, I think, spending around $70 million. It was in a presentation that Knutson gave last week. I know Frank Moretti's working on a pretty large deal. There's about 600 or 700 apartment units that have gone through form-based code, and I think the recent one is Cedar Street out of Chicago. The thing about downtown, what we're probably seeing, is you talk to the local developers. I talked to Kalita, I talked to Four, I talked to Mulaski and Innovation. They all were like sitting on the sidelines watching downtown, and you could tee up the best piece of dirt, and it was like from the city or just a good deal, and they just didn't get it. And I know that Elysian and Kalita are the same. They bought the F9 project, but they haven't built anything. No, it's all been out-of-town developers with the
They
exception.
paid a lot of money for it too.
Yeah.
In downtown Las Vegas.
Yeah, we just sold, and they get it. They get the vertical, they get the 75 feet. We just sold Charleston and Fourth for $120 a square foot for land value, and to an apartment developer. And that whole core there at Charleston and Fourth, there will be roughly 900 units in the Arts District. That's like, call it 1,500 people that are going to be able to walk to things that is going to just continue to grow. So,
we've talked about this, not just downtown. In my line of business, we've talked about in Vegas. You see so many grandiose projects, and you see so many plans, and there's so many press releases with these really cool photos of stuff that never happens. And we tell clients that come in from out of town, you got to build it in order for anyone to believe it. Giving somebody a picture and saying, here, sign this lease, doesn't work as well here. And I think what he just said has been a great challenge of this town for density is they're all out of town, partially because the developers in this town. Now, granted, we don't have a ton of developers, but Frank Moretti, for example, he's a local, and it takes a lot of guts to do what he's been doing. And there's not really anyone else in town that has had those kind of guts. There's a lot of out-of-state developers. I mean, obviously these guys and Frank. I don't.
Yeah, Jay Dapper's the
And
only
Jay.
other. He's doing the post office building, the East Charleston, the theater that you mentioned.
Yep.
But yeah, it's the same.
We're almost out of time. I haven't even gotten to the plates, doggone it. So real quick, I don't know if you guys have gone crazy on a Friday night or Saturday night in downtown lately, but there's every kind of food you can want. There's all kinds of different beer. One of my favorite brands. Anybody ever heard of Smoke Wagon? Fantastic. Hey, John. Fantastic country star in terms of the popularity and how good their bourbons are. They have a distillery in the spaghetti bowl, so to speak, that nobody can visit, and they're going to build an experience. So it's not just going to be beer soon, hopefully. But as far as the retail, the entertainment, the restaurants off Fremont Street, what are you guys most excited about? And John, you mentioned Nashville earlier, and I know my team, me, Brett, and Chris, we go to different towns to understand their downtowns, and we've been to Deep Ellum and all those different downtowns, and it's a lot of fun. But what do we compare to, and what are you guys most excited about?
Well, I could say I'm most excited that they're making money.
Yeah.
It's
I
hard.
need that story.
It's hard to make money in a small business. It's hard to make money in a restaurant. So to see some of the business, not all of them, but some of them really thriving, that's exciting. And to see the national press with the Rob report, I think a week ago, talking about the Arts District, our little Arts District was amazing. So there's a lot more. The Arts District happened very quickly, so there's a lot more in the pipeline, and but I'm just excited to see them making money. It's nice to see.
I think we forgot to plug the Todd English Hotel. So there is a brand new boutique hotel in the Arts District that you'll see people coming from Howard Hughes, from downtown Summerlin to have their meetings or their lunches there. I couldn't tell you 10 years ago that you saw people coming downtown to have their power lunches. And so I'm just so excited that if you went to Austin 10 years ago and you saw, is it 6th Street or Rainey Street, the houses that were bars that are now high rises. And so, that was, and I actually was there, a month ago. Starwood's building a one hotel on top of a condo tower. It'll be the tallest tower in Austin. And I think Vegas is like in that direction. Austin, Nashville. But I'm just excited to see it all happen. That distillery, by the way, those guys were one of the early pioneers in the Griffin, which was one of the first bars on Fremont East. So you had like 3 or 4 bars that started the movement, and they actually bought the land from the city when the RTC and NDOT got rid of the land. So they'll be building on Oakey and just west of Commerce on about 7 acres, about a $70 million distillery for Smoke Wagon. So that's a pretty big investment. And by the way, the Atomic Golf is another $70 million development that's happening and being built right now. So
I have a client from Texas that really loves one particular very hard to get Smoke Wagon bottle, and I didn't know any better. I had just heard of it. This was years ago, and I went and tried to knock on the door, and there was no door to knock on because there was gates. And finally, a guy came out, and he's moving some barrels around, and he's like, "Hey, I was trying to find this really rare bottle." And he's like, "We don't do that here, man. We don't have a storefront." I was like, "Oh." So hopefully that'll be a part of the game plan.
They were actually our first resident at the Ogden. To tell you how everything kind of comes full circle, we were trying to get them to be the first buyer, but they ended up buying in Trotter Circle, which is like Rancho and Alta. So the people actually that left, that were renting from us, whether it be Ogden or Jewel, they actually wanted to live there like Sam, but they ended up buying mostly in the area, whether it be the neighborhoods I mentioned earlier, but because they met their wife or their husband in one of our buildings. And it's pretty cool that everyone wants to stay downtown. It doesn't feel like a desert, from where we live.
Yeah.
So.
Anybody ever heard of the shoe brand Allbirds? So the lady that does all the real estate for Allbirds, I was driving her around town probably 9-12 months ago, and she used to work for Apple. So she went from Apple to Allbirds and had never been downtown. Obviously had been to Vegas. We drove all over town, kind of understanding the marketplace. And I drove her down Main Street, and she couldn't believe it. She was shocked. And Allbirds they're not cheap shoes. They're $100 plus often. And she said, I understand what's going on here. She's traveled the country doing real estate for these large brands, right? She knows cities in and out, and she said, 5 years from now, this is a place Allbirds will be. And I'm not talking about North Premium Outlets. I'm talking about that cool, grungy Main Street vibe. So when you think about the biggest and most trendy brands, and that's what they're saying about downtown a year ago, it kind of tells you that we are grown up. It is done. It is over with. It's now the coolest place to be, right? Q&A.
Yes, we have a lot of great questions. Thank you both. Somebody from the audience wanted to point out that you forgot perhaps the most important construction project ever to happen downtown in 50 years.
I'm very sorry.
Okay, that was me. 50-foot lighted showgirls across from the Atomic Golf. There is...
They took down the showgirls over there and made them 50 feet tall.
With lights.
With lights. Got it.
There's a lot of bills coming in the legislature on rent control. Is that a fear of the developers of downtown, of all of it?
Are we okay asking that question?
Yeah, sure.
It's tough.
Listen, I think there's other mechanisms that can get us to the same place in downtown, and things that are happening, for example, like I mentioned, through the form-based code. So to have, another obstacle that is going to potentially make people not want to be in downtown and look somewhere else, and look at where they can spread out their costs on a much bigger project as far as scale. Because outside of Symphony Park, it's hard to do an assemblage downtown. It's hard to get the parcels together. So I don't know the specifics of it, but I can tell you it's something that would be a hurdle that I think would be there's a different way to do it than to have a mandate through it. So.
Thank you.
Thank you to that person.
The age-old question of grocery stores, Sam.
Yeah, happy to. I mean, I get this all the time. We got this 20 years ago.
And then the second part of the question, is there any other missing elements that you guys want to see downtown?
I'll answer the grocery one if that's okay. It's, 20 years ago, we were asked the same thing. Where are we going to go to our groceries? So Grant and Jason, Ryan, and I had to come up with an answer. And so we had this big glossy answer of, we're going to have this room where you can have a refrigerator, you can have your stuff dropped off. I think at that time, Albertsons had a pilot program in North Dakota somewhere where they're delivering, so we latched onto that and said, well, you can have it delivered, and we're going to have a room for it. And people, oh, okay, that'll work. And they bought their units, and after that, Amazon and all these different things, you can press a button, a grocery store comes there. My wife, who I love, comes from the shiny hills of Summerlin down to the depths of downtown, and the first thing she says is, where are we going to shop? And at the time, she couldn't boil water. And no offense, I love her, but she couldn't. And my father-in-law, David Dahan, is here, so I can say that. He knows that. But look at me. I haven't missed a meal yet. I mean, listen, you can shop in downtown. There's a Smith's down there. There's a Albertsons on the other side. There's a button you can press and get your food. There's a Costco. There's a Costco half a mile away from my house, a Costco. So, I want people to take where are we going to shop out of the conversation of downtown. It's not an issue. It's not a problem. Do we need another grocer down there? Yeah, at some point we do, and it'll happen naturally. If it happened 10 years ago, it would have failed, and I'd be up here saying, well, yeah, it failed down there. It'll never work. It wasn't the right time. So I can tell you today, there's smart people from Las Vegas in another state talking to people right now about a grocery store. And if they can make a deal out of it, maybe in 6 months to a year they can announce it, and maybe in 3 years it'll come to fruition, and that'll be the right time to have a grocery store. So that's my answer.
Great answer.
Are any families moving downtown too soon?
I will say that not as many as we'd like. We're losing folks when they have children to places where they can get their kid to school a lot easier. So you do have Our Lady, Ninth Bridge School started, you have Las Vegas Academy, but not everybody can get into that. But I think a lot of families are moving to areas once they have children, or a lot of parents are moving once they have children to areas where they can get to school a lot easier. So I think that's the schools are the biggest deterrent for getting families downtown.
Yeah, it's true, and my wife feels the same way with our child. And I grew up in a public school system. I didn't grow up fancy. I didn't go to a private school. So I see Wasden, which was just redone, 5 minutes away from me, and I'm thinking, well, can't we just send our daughter to there? Does she need to go to a different school? But there's just kind of this feeling that it doesn't work, and I'm a product of the public school system. I was kicked out at 9th grade, and so I know there's some problems in it, and hopefully it gets better. So there's definitely that concern down there.
A little more detailed question. You mentioned general rent numbers specific to square footage, but what about the building cost? Is there different, you mentioned $120 a square foot at 4th Street, Symphony Park. Can you kind of just run us through, both of you, make me some of the construction cost and per square foot cost like that for a minute or two?
I can quickly say from share 1 to share 2, in less than 12 months' time, it went up over 30% in cost for us.
Yeah.
That was a big hit. And we're going to get hit again with these interest rates where they're at and try to get our permanent financing, which is a big concern. As far as the detail, John's way more versed in that than I am, I would say.
Yeah, we're the same, 35% higher. So ARIC, if we were to build it today, that was built for roughly $275,000 a door, and that's a wood frame wrap product. And then bidding that same project out today is about $375,000 a door. So $100,000 increase, so.
Are the rents more in Symphony Park, more than the Medical District, more than 4th and Charleston? Is there a?
They're all different. It's different products. It's, it's at least in the Arts District. We haven't even started any site work over there, and we get more calls from retail guys trying to rent retail. That there's a waiting list, like he said, for share on the apartments. Meanwhile, we've had a struggle at Symphony Park getting that final retail space leased, but so the rents as far as the apartments are just kind of all over the place. Very different product types, very different unit sizes. I mean, you're getting 1,200 for 400 something square feet. We won't have 400 square feet.
Right.
So.
Yeah. It is much different. Symphony Park, I walk around like I'm in a museum. I mean, it's beautiful over there. You walk out of our project, you're right in the heart of downtown. You're on the sidewalk, and there's a lot of growth and a lot of things that need to happen. And there's a $500 million performing arts center in Symphony Park. I mean, the place is incredible. It's really incredible.
Speaking of that, we get the calendar for it because we're neighbors of it, but they'll do 4,000 people in a day in 2 shows, a 1 o'clock show and an evening show at Smith Center on Saturdays. I mean, they're selling out again, which is nice to see. But
I think that to close it out, I think that these construction cost increases, new development standards that are going to cost more. I think that there's a general consensus that development of really any product, but especially high-density product, is going to get more expensive, and it's going to continue getting more expensive. And as the land gets more expensive, what you got to understand is these construction costs translate directly to how much rent they have to get, right? So, and all we're talking about is affordability, and we're going to be talking about affordability more and more, and how much housing and affordable housing we need in this town when we're going to be looking at infill, and it's really expensive to build these things. So. It's a big issue, and when you have time to talk to somebody about it and make these considerations, it's something that developers aren't going to be able to solve it. It's going to be a joint effort with the municipalities and the state and probably the federal government as well. So, you guys have any closing comments? Otherwise, Reed's going to throw the hook around my neck.
I just want to say thanks to NAIOP, thanks to Carpenter Cylinders for hosting us.
Thank you.
It's nice to have a forum to talk about downtown, and I feel like I live in a bubble, and so where am I at? What's going on out here? And it's exciting to see. It really it brings confidence that things are going to get better going forward.
yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you guys for being here. That was great. Thank you, everyone. And don't forget, if you want to go back to the office and have some big eyes, grab that 25-page paper. It's really incredible to see all the stuff that is being done on a project-by-project basis. Thanks again.
All right.
Thanks again to Carpenter, Sellers, Gatto, and that concludes today's program. Thanks, everyone.